your stress and your metabolism aren't two separate problems. They're the same problem, wearing two different faces. And there is a very specific difference between treating them as two problems and treating them as one. Two problems need two different fixes, a pill for the mind, a diet for the body. One problem, treated at the root, needs something Japan has quietly relied on for centuries, steeped in a cup, taking about 4 minutes to work. Before we go further, this video is about 5 tea rituals that genuinely support a calmer mind and a steadier metabolism, and the research behind them is real. It is not medical advice, and it's not a suggestion to replace anything a doctor has prescribed you. If you're managing a diagnosed condition, tea is something you add alongside that care, not instead of it. With that said, 5 rituals. All of them built around one plant, prepared 5 different ways, at 5 different points in the day. Stay with me until ritual number 5, because number 5 is the one that makes the other 4 permanent, the one that turns tea I sometimes remember to drink into something that structures your entire day without you ever having to think about it again. But first, ritual number 3 is the one that's going to surprise you, because it's not about what's in the cup at all. It's about how long you wait between sips, and getting that detail wrong is the reason most people drink tea their whole lives and never once feel what it's actually capable of doing to a stressed nervous system. Let's begin. Most of us think about tea the wrong way. We treat it as a beverage, something to drink instead of coffee, maybe slightly healthier, consume the same rushed way we consume everything else, gulped between tasks without a second thought. Treated that way, tea barely outperforms a glass of flavored water. Japan doesn't treat tea that way. In Japan, tea is not simply something you drink. It is a structured daily ritual, the preparation, the pacing, the specific point in the day it's consumed, all deliberately shaped, over centuries, around a single underlying idea captured in the phrase ichigo ichi, this exact moment, this exact cup, will never happen again in quite the same way, so it deserves your full attention while it's here. There is a broader philosophy behind this too, hojicha, the tea ceremony tradition emphasizing simplicity, presence, and slowness as the actual point of the practice, not an incidental side effect of it. 5 rituals. Each one built around a different point in your day, a different preparation, and a different physiological effect, some calming, some metabolic, several doing both at once. Let's go through every single one. You've probably assumed coffee is simply the correct first beverage of the day, the one that wakes you up, the one everything else is secondary to. I want you to stay with me here, because starting with Sencha instead doesn't mean giving up coffee. It means changing what your body's very first input of the day actually is. Here's the mechanism. Sencha, a standard Japanese green tea, is rich in catechins, a class of plant compounds, the most researched of which is EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. Research on EGCG and metabolic rate has found it can modestly increase thermogenesis, the rate at which your body burns calories at rest, particularly when consumed regularly over time rather than as a one-off. This isn't a dramatic metabolic overhaul from a single cup, it's a small, compounding effect that adds up meaningfully across months of daily consumption, the same way most of the habits on this channel work. There's a second mechanism specific to drinking it warm, first thing, before coffee. Overnight, you go 7 or 8 hours without fluid, and a warm cup of tea rehydrates gently, without the sharp cortisol spike that coffee on a completely empty stomach can produce. Green tea does contain caffeine, but paired with L-theanine, an amino acid unique to tea that promotes a calmer, more sustained kind of alertness, the resulting energy curve tends to feel steadier than coffee's sharper spike and crash pattern, particularly first thing, when your cortisol is naturally already elevated from the morning wake cycle. The shift, the same caffeine molecule, delivered through tea instead of coffee, arrives alongside a compound that smooths out its effect, meaning your first beverage of the day can wake you up and calm your nervous system's stress response at the same time, instead of doing only the first one. That is ritual number 1. Now, ritual number 2 is where this gets interesting, because it addresses a specific moment most people feel with something far worse for their metabolism. This sounds like a minor substitution. Repeated daily, it isn't minor at all. Here's the mechanism. The mid-morning or mid-afternoon snack window is where a huge share of unplanned daily calories get consumed, not because of genuine hunger, but because of a dip in blood sugar, a moment of boredom, or simply habit. A warm cup of tea in that window does several things a snack doesn't. First, the volume and warmth activate stomach stretch receptors that contribute to a mild sense of fullness, similar to how a broth-based soup works before a meal, just on a smaller scale. Second, for genmaicha specifically, green tea blended with roasted brown rice, there's a mildly nutty, satisfying flavor profile that research on flavor and craving has found can reduce the intensity of a subsequent sugar or snack craving, likely because the mouth and palate register a complete, satisfying flavor experience rather than an unmet one. Hojicha, a roasted green tea, is naturally lower in caffeine than standard sencha because the roasting process reduces caffeine content, which makes it a better fit for a mid to late afternoon ritual, where you still want the calming, structured pause of a tea break without the caffeine load interfering with sleep hours later. The shift, a cup of tea in the exact window most people default to a snack, removes a meaningful, entirely unplanned source of daily calories, not through willpower or restriction, but by giving that specific moment of the day something else to actually do. That is ritual number 2. Now, ritual number 3, the one I mentioned at the very beginning. Stay right here, because this is the detail that changes everything about how tea actually affects your nervous system. Slow down here, because I know what you're thinking, that how you sip tea can't possibly matter as much as what's in the cup. Here's what it's actually doing, and why skipping this detail is the single biggest reason most people drink tea their whole lives without ever feeling its calming effect clearly. Here's the mechanism. A slow, extended exhale is one of the most direct triggers of the vagus nerve, the primary driver of your parasympathetic, rest and recover nervous system state. Sipping tea slowly, with a genuine pause between sips rather than continuous drinking, naturally elongates your breathing pattern around each sip. You exhale slightly before sipping, inhale the aroma, sip, then pause again before the next one. This isn't an accident of tea ceremony aesthetics. It functions as an unconscious breathing exercise, remarkably similar in mechanism to the deliberate slow exhale breathing techniques used specifically for vagal stimulation, just embedded inside a beverage ritual instead of a standalone practice. Drink the same cup of tea in rapid, continuous gulps, the way most people drink water when thirsty, and this entire mechanism disappears. You still get the catechins, the L-theanine, the mild hydration. You lose almost all of the nervous system calming effect, because that effect was never really about the liquid. It was about the pacing the liquid was traditionally consumed with. The shift, the same cup of tea, sipped with a genuine several-second pause between each sip instead of drunk continuously, produces a measurably calmer physiological state, because the pacing itself is doing a large share of the actual work, not the tea alone. That is ritual number 3. Now, ritual number 4, and this one addresses the specific moment in the evening most people reach for something that works directly against a calm night. Most evenings end with something sweet, dessert, a sugary drink, a second helping of something, consumed almost automatically once dinner itself is finished. This is one of the most common unaccounted for sources of daily sugar intake, and it arrives at precisely the time of day your body least needs a blood sugar spike, right before a long stretch of inactivity and sleep. Here's the mechanism. A roasted tea like hojicha, or a caffeine-free herbal option, provides the same warm, ritualistic something after dinner experience a dessert does, without the sugar spike and the insulin response that follows it. Because hojicha's caffeine content is already reduced through roasting, and many traditional after-dinner options are caffeine-free entirely, this ritual doesn't interfere with the sleep quality mechanisms that matter most in the hours before bed, unlike dessert, which, through the blood sugar spike and subsequent crash, has actually been associated in some research with more fragmented, lower-quality sleep for a meaningful portion of the night. The shift, the same evening ritual, something warm, something after dinner, something that marks the meal as finished, delivered through tea instead of dessert, removes a nightly sugar spike that was never actually necessary for the ritual to feel complete. That is ritual number 4. Now, ritual number 5, the one I told you at the very start makes all 4 of the others permanent. Stay here, because this is the most important thing in this entire video. This last ritual isn't about tea at all. It's about why the other 4 survive past the first excited week, when so many wellness habits quietly don't. Here's what I mean. If sencha in the morning, tea instead of a snack, mindful sipping, and an after-dinner hojicha are each treated as an independent choice, made fresh every single day, they compete against every other pull on your attention, the rush of a busy morning, the impulse to grab a snack without thinking, the habit of scrolling straight through dinner without a pause afterward. Independent choices, repeated daily, are exactly the kind of thing that quietly falls away the moment life gets even slightly more chaotic than usual. The traditional structure behind Japanese tea culture treats these moments as fixed points in the day's rhythm, not spontaneous decisions. Tea at roughly the same time each morning, each afternoon, each evening, the same way a meal happens at a roughly consistent time rather than whenever you get around to it. Research on habit formation consistently finds that behaviors anchored to a specific, consistent time and trigger become automatic far faster than the same behaviors attempted at inconsistent, whenever it feels right moments, because a fixed time removes the daily decision of whether or when to do it at all. The shift: you don't need the willpower to remember and choose tea over coffee, over a snack, over dessert, fresh every single day for the rest of your life. You need 4 fixed times in your existing daily rhythm, and once they're set, the other 4 rituals stop requiring a decision at all, they just become what that part of your day is. That is ritual number 5. Here is everything in one breath. Start the day with warm sencha before coffee, pairing caffeine with calm instead of a sharp spike. Replace the midday snack with a small cup of hojicha or genmaicha. Sip slowly, with a genuine pause between each sip, letting the pacing do as much work as the tea itself. Replace dessert with a warm, low-caffeine tea in the hour after dinner. And anchor all 4 to the same fixed times each day, so none of it requires a decision. 5 rituals. No supplement, no subscription, no equipment beyond a kettle and a cup you likely already own. Every single one begins with your very next cup, whenever that happens to be today. A calmer mind and a steadier metabolism were never actually 2 separate problems requiring 2 separate solutions. Both respond to the same small, repeated, well-timed input. You simply never had the specific rituals laid out this clearly before. Now you do. And again, this sits alongside proper medical care, never in place of it. So here's what I want from you before you close this video. Right now, tell me in the comments which one of these 5 rituals you're missing most. Is it number 1, is coffee still the very first thing you reach for, before anything warm and calming has a chance to go first? Is it number 3, do you drink your tea in 3 fast gulps without ever once pausing between them? Is it number 5, have you tried tea rituals before, but only sporadically, whenever you happen to remember? Tell me the number, 1 through 5, in the comments right now, because naming it is the first step, and someone reading your comment might recognize their own routine in it and finally decide to change it starting with their very next cup. If this changed how you think about tea, send it to the one person you know who's always reaching for a second or third coffee by 2 p.m. and wondering why they can't calm down by 9. They're 5 small rituals away from a completely different relationship with both their stress and their metabolism. I'll see you in the next one.